Our children and teens are like sponges. Like all people, they're created to learn. And because of where they're at developmentally, they are especially impressionable and vulnerable. And in today's world, one of the most effective molders and shapers of young hearts and minds is the culture. As Christian parents and youth workers, our job is to nurture them in the Christian faith so that they will grow up to be lovers and doers of the truth of Christ. How can we best nurture them in the faith in today's world? We'll be learning about effective nurture and instruction from our friend Dr. Terry Linhart. Stick with us as we talk to Terry about his new book, Teaching the Next Generations, and a whole lot more on this episode of Youth Culture Matters.
From the Center for Parent-Youth Understanding, this is Youth Culture Matters. If you're a parent, youth worker, educator, counselor, grandparent, or anyone else who cares about kids, we're glad you've joined us for this practical, informative, and hope-filled podcast. This is a place where together we talk and think Christianly about the rapidly changing world of today's children, teens, and young adults.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Youth Culture Matters. I'm Walt Mueller here with Jason Sochanek. Jason, also known as and famous for being the winner of the Washington State Fair 2014 fruitcake baking contest. Just to call you my friend
because... How did you find this out, Walt? This was not public knowledge.
It's on the internet.
Oh,
you can find...
I do forget about that.
Yeah, you can find anything on the internet. Are you aware of that?
I guarantee, yeah, but you can't find out about my fruitcake recipe. Well. That one is very difficult to find. I did not ever post that. Neither did the Washington State Fair Committee.
Really, so. I only said that for one reason. I want to know what everybody thinks about fruitcake. You know, Christmas is coming, and fruitcake's a big thing. I was in Costco and saw the big, massive, round fruitcake. It's actually like a small truck tire. And could probably be used as one. You could get it, $16 for a spare. I'm not sure, but do you guys like fruitcake? Well, Jason, do you like fruitcake? What do you think of fruitcake?
No, who really likes fruitcake? I think 1 out of every 400 people like fruitcake, and I think now fruitcake's more of a throwback than it is a like, hey, go buy me a fruitcake. And it's interesting that they've gotten bigger because I think that they've gotten bigger because no one else wants them. So. The one person that does, they just get more fruitcake.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So if you're that 1 out of 400, that makes you pretty special.
That does make you pretty special. Do you like fruitcake, Walt?
I love it. I do. I love it.
So anyone listening to this podcast, please send to the CPYU
that
offices
would be awesome.
Fruitcake.
Yeah.
Because he would love that.
Well, see, I started to eat this stuff when I was younger because you got to remember my dad was a pastor. And so at Christmas time, the doorbell would constantly be ringing with deliveries from either delivery people or actual people who were dropping off all kinds of different Christmas treats, boxes of chocolates, baked goods, and there were always 2 or 3 fruitcakes. So I do like fruitcake. I mean, my wife doesn't, Lisa doesn't. That's no surprise, right? I mean, you would be surprised if she did. But I like it, and I think the thicker and meatier it is with the fruit and the nuts, and the darker the actual cake is, the better it tastes. I love it.
Okay,
I just thought there's nothing. And with a glass of milk
care of Walt Mueller, 438
Cloverleaf
Road, Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, 17022.
Send them. Come on.
Send your fruitcake.
Yeah.
And you can send me your Christmas cookies.
It's a taste of my childhood. That's what it reminds me of. So
this is interesting, Christmas. Walt, because this is a generational thing.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, because anyone I would say younger than 35 probably has never received a fruitcake.
Do you celebrate Christmas?
I do, but I don't celebrate it with fruitcake.
Okay, because I was wondering if that's a generational thing too.
I don't think that you recognize that fruitcake is not a thing anymore. Like there is no one 35 and younger that gives a fruitcake unless it's a joke. It's just not. It's not something that happens anymore. Gift cards are probably what has replaced a fruitcake.
This is disappointing.
That's right off the top of my mind. But if I think about what is handed out most, it's not fruitcake. It's gift cards. Because for $5 you could go buy a fruitcake, or you could just give them a Starbucks gift card.
All right. When did you last try fruitcake? When did you last eat fruitcake?
Oh, I probably was a teenager.
See, you need to go back and try it again. Yeah, it's just because a lot of,
even
decades
if I try
have passed,
it's
could
not
be
like
good.
I'm going to start giving it as a gift
But
to
you
friends.
might like it. You might hope that you become number 2 out of 400. That you would like the fruit. Kenton, do you like fruitcake?
I have never had a fruitcake.
Okay, there we go. Now, yes.
Fruitcake in my generation is an insult and not a food.
Okay. Okay, well, that's disappointing, too. But, number one, I'm not surprised you've never had it.
All the more
we've
reason to
asked-
send us fruitcake.
I know. We've asked Kenton, and this maybe we should leave this for another podcast, but we've asked Kenton some very interesting questions about pop culture, and the answers have been disappointing, interesting, frightening.
Telling about his
Telling.
generation.
Yeah. So yeah, the knowledge.
Hey, but we
is
each of our
lacking, but-
generations have our own stuff and uniqueness and disappointments.
With
and-
All right,
Walt's
so you've
definition
never
of
tried.
Let's be very
pop
fair.
culture.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
let's-
now he's trying to redefine pop culture.
No, but here, let me ask this, Chris. Chris would know this. Chris, do you agree with the sentiment that I just shared? That anyone 35 and younger probably has neither received nor
Now,
desires
remember
to
who
give
you're asking here. This man is not
No.
normal. He is
He's
so
not.
out of the box. It's not even funny. So I can't wait to hear this. This is going to be
No,
interesting.
you are probably correct. They would, or if they have given or received it, it has been in some sense with some sense of irony or supposed
Yes.
sense of irony.
When did you last try
Exactly.
fruitcake, Chris? Have you had
Oh
it?
yeah, not too long ago, a few years.
Do you
ago.
like the taste?
I've had ones that are better than others. There's some that I don't mind, but I mean,
Yeah.
as a whole, I'm not a huge fan. But they're not terrible. There's some that are decent.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm just going to say this. If it's only 1 out of 400, which I believe, Jason, is based on poor research, poor science, and is statistically incorrect, Costco would not carry them. Right? I mean, that's just the way.
Costco carries a lot of stuff you don't think you need, and then you get there and you buy it anyways.
But you get
Like
it,
it's-
and then you eat it. Why would you? Yeah, it's. I'm
just
just going to
because it's
encourage
at
everyone.
Costco, just because it's at Costco doesn't mean people actually eat it. It means they might buy it. But I don't know if you've ever shopped at Costco frequently, because when you go there, you end up buying things. You're like, oh, I need this huge bag of pretzels. And then you get home, and it takes you 7 months to eat through the pretzels. And really, after the first month, they're no longer good. You're just eating stale pretzels for the next 5 months.
However, that's about volume. That's not about quality or taste. That argument there doesn't hold up. You just admitted you ate them, though. So I'm just going to say this. Here's the challenge. Christmas is here. It's coming. Everybody get a fruitcake. Give it a shot. Tell us what you think. And I'd like to know if the 1 in 400 is actually accurate. Let us know.
We're about to get angry emails.
I made that number up.
I
So
know you did.
You are correct. You are
Do
correct.
you like
and-
fruitcake? Send the
but-
answers to podcast
Yeah.
at cpyu.org.
Yeah, and
But
send
I
the
guarantee
fruitcakes.
you, the number is drastically declined since your generation. Like the number of individuals that like fruitcake or give it as a gift. Yeah, and I think when it is, it's just like Chris said, it's out of irony.
Yeah, this is sad because this parallels our loss of truth and our love for truth. It's just
You
sad.
cannot take fruitcake and equate it to the loss of truth.
It's another
fruitcake
sign.
does not equal truth.
It's another sign of cultural decline. We'll just leave it at that. All right? So send your fruitcakes. You guys got what? Do you have a question or a quiz for us today? We've been waiting for a quiz. Do you have a quiz?
You wanted a quiz. It's Christmas time, so we have some Christmas quiz trivia.
Oh boy.
Oh, this is going to be about Die Hard, isn't it? Die Hard the movie.
I thought about that, actually. The debate about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. I did think about it. If I was going to do one question, that might have been it. All right, but you're on the right line. So we've got basically some movie quotes. They're all traditional Christmas movies.
Okay.
They may not be the best quotes from the movies. They may not be the most famous quotes. Some of them are going to be easier than others, but I just have a list of quotes. We'll go back and forth. We'll ask Walt one. We'll ask Jason one. We'll go back and forth and find out what the final score is at the end. How's
Okay.
that sound?
That sounds great.
I'm not looking forward to this at all.
Does anybody want to go first?
I'll go first. Give me.
All righty.
If it's an easy one.
Yeah,
If it's
we are starting off easy.
Yeah.
All right, so you just have to. You have to
Are there
name,
any?
You have to name the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the quote. Look, Daddy, teacher says, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Oh, that's It's a Wonderful Life.
Ding, ding, ding. We need
Yeah.
our bell. We don't have our special bell. All right,
There you
we
go.
go. All right, Jason, you're up.
Okay.
Well, I hate to disagree with you, but not only is there such a person, but here I am to prove it.
Wow.
He looks totally stumped.
I thought this was going to be easy. But here I am to prove it. So that has to be Santa Claus, and I'm going to. But here I am to prove it. Oh. Let's just go with the Santa Claus.
Incorrect. Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, that was going to be my second guess.
All righty.
oh well.
Walt's already up.
Hold on. I want to write that down, what Jason just said. Oh, that was going to be my second guess. Because that's a good follow-up if I get the answer wrong.
That is.
I mean, that just
That is.
bails.
It's a
That
great
just
one.
bails you out. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All righty.
Let's see.
Walt, you are up. Even my dog has gone commercial.
I have no idea. I'm not going to waste all the time. I'll just guess. Is that from Fruitcake, the movie?
A Charlie Brown Christmas.
Oh, Charlie Brown. That was
Snoopy
my
is
second
decorating
guess.
his doghouse.
Darn. That was my second guess.
All righty. Jason, you're up. Christmas was on its way. Lovely, glorious, beautiful Christmas upon which the entire kid year revolved.
Oh, the Christmas Story.
A Christmas Story, yes.
Oh,
Do you know I have a Red Ryder BB gun?
and now we are tied.
Yeah.
All righty, Walt. Christmas is just about my favorite time. Ever since I was a little kid, I always felt like it was my own personal holiday.
I have no idea. I'll just throw a wild guess out there. Is that National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
No, it is not. Ernest Saves Christmas.
Oh boy. Would you have gotten that one, Jason?
No, that wasn't even anywhere in. But as soon as he said that, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
You know when
That's why I
claimed-
said these aren't necessarily all famous quotes. You're not some of these.
Ernest
you really got to think.
Saves Christmas, man. That is a throwback.
That was when I
Oh.
defragmented my brain. That one was flushed. That was gone.
Okay,
Any
real quick.
Ernest
Here's
movie.
a pop culture one. Walt, let's see if you can do this. Where did Ernest come from? He had movies, but he showed up in commercials before he ever did movies. Do you know?
Are you talking about
product-
what commercial?
Well, what product did he sell before he became a movie? Ernest.
Yeah, I don't remember.
7-Up.
Okay.
I didn't know
I
that.
think it was 7-Up. That's.
We'll look it up for you and verify it.
We'll look it
Do
up.
people still drink 7-Up? I'll tell you what. If you dip a piece of fruitcake in 7-Up, it is awesome.
All right, who's up?
I
Jason,
am.
you're up. It's Christmas Eve. It's the one night of the year when we all act a little nicer, we smile a little easier, we cheer a little more. For a couple of hours out of the whole year, we are the people that we always hoped we would be.
Ooh.
These are tough.
Can I give Jason a hint on this one?
Go
Right.
ahead. That probably
Go
means he
ahead.
has no clue.
I have an idea, but
The character who says this quote in real life, the person who plays this character, is one of the most famous Cubs fans.
Oh, I know what this is.
well, that
Can I
would have
answer?
to be
Can I
Bill
answer?
Murray.
Can I answer?
Ooh,
Oh,
can
hold
he
on.
steal?
No, you
5,
can't steal.
4,
Okay,
3.
so I'm just gonna. Bill Murray's not in this, but Christmas Vacation.
Walt
is
for
it-
the steal.
Is it Scrooged?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Scrooge,
Bill Murray.
yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah. Scrooge
That's
was
right.
my first answer.
All right. I guess.
Excited about that. Do you notice how I pick up on the things you say and I just it's like beating a dead horse.
yeah.
I can't let it go.
All right. I guess we'll stick with Walt here, seeing that he stole that one. We're going back to Walt. We're kicking off our old fun fashion family Christmas by heading out into the country in the old front-wheel drive sleigh to embrace the frosty majesty of the winter landscape and select that most important of Christmas symbols.
I will steal
I'll
this.
continue
I will
on.
steal
No, you're
this.
not
I will
stealing
steal
it.
this.
You're not stealing it.
I'm going to steal this.
National Lampoon Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
And one of the lines right after that is one of my favorite lines in that movie, which is the one where they're standing there looking at the tree, and Rusty says, "Dad, that's not going to fit in our yard." And he goes, "It's not going in our yard, Russ. It's going in our living room." I mean, if you just stop and listen to some of those lines, they're hilarious.
There are plenty of lines from that movie that I could not use.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That is
a
very
hilarious. Some of the lines are just, like when they're looking for the squirrel, and they're all standing there, and he yells, "Russ!" He goes, "I'm right here, Dad." He was right underneath him. I thought that was a great one. I laugh at that every time. Lisa and I both.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, just
All right, we got a few more. Jason, a whole cheese pizza just for me.
Family Man.
Oh, I have a guess on that.
All right.
Is that
No, you
Jason?
can't steal. You only
Jason-
get one steal.
Jason's incorrect, so go ahead, Walt. What do you
Is
think?
it the Santa Claus?
No, it's not.
Okay, all right, because I know he.
Home Alone.
Oh, Home Alone. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
a whole
right.
cheese
Yeah,
pizza just
yeah.
for me. All right, here we go. Walt, I fell down the chimney and landed on a flaming hot goose.
Again, I have no idea. I'll just guess. The Santa Claus.
Nope.
Okay.
The character that fell down the chimney has nothing to do with Santa.
Oh, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Oh, that's a good guess. No, it was the Muppet Christmas Carol. That was Rizzo the Rat.
Rizzo the Rat. Didn't he play
That's
for the
pretty close.
Cubs? What?
Yeah, I should just keep.
For-
That was my second
They
answer.
all tie into the Cubs somehow. All righty. All right. We'll do. Let me tally up the score. Jason, I think you only have one.
No,
Boy, that's a
I
shame.
still. I have two. I have to have two. Maybe
No,
I-
that's Walt's actually up 3-1. believe
Yeah,
it
I
or
think
not.
you only got
Wow.
one. I
So
think
you
you only
never
got
actually got a steal.
you only got 1 out of 400, Jason.
That's true.
It's just a guess. It's not.
All right,
scientific.
Jason. Let me see if I can find one that maybe you'll get.
So apparently I'm among.
Yeah, I'm
really
trying
good
to set
company.
you up with an easier one. All right, first we'll make snow angels for 2 hours, then we'll go ice skating, then we'll eat a whole roll of Toll House cookie dough as fast as we can,
Oh,
and
this
then
is
we'll
perfect.
snuggle.
I get extra points, and if I tell who they're talking to,
We're just going with
it's
the one. for
Elf
now.
talking to his dad, biological dad.
Yes.
Ding 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 ding. They're in the kitchen.
Who was played by who?
James Caan was the father. Will Ferrell was Elf.
All right,
Yeah.
very good.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know
that, I am up 4-3 now.
what?
Boom.
Okay. Listen. Do you know? I think this is correct. Do you know? Here's a trivia question for you. Do you know what song from the holidays? I'm gonna stretch it beyond Christmas. From the holidays, James Caan figures into. Yeah, you got no idea. Adam
James
Sandler.
Caan. So what song from the holidays James Caan figures into?
Yeah,
The
he's actually
Hanukkah
mentioned
song.
the Hanukkah song. James Caan's mentioned in Adam Sandler's Hanukkah song.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Who's getting this one?
This is for you, Walt.
Okay.
If I
I'm
could,
up 4-3.
What?
Jason's math. That's West Coast math.
Yeah. 1 out of 400.
If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Well, that's obviously someone who wasn't too fond of Christmas. I have no idea. Is that another one of the Scrooge movies? Is it?
You're on the right track, yes.
That's
And
not-
you don't have to
that's
be
not-
specific. There's several versions of this.
Yeah, and that
obviously.
one, that's pretty violent. So that can't be from the original.
It is not the
Yeah.
original.
And it's so violent it can't be from one of my favorite versions of that, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. I don't know which one is it.
It's actually the.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
Can I steal?
Yeah, go ahead. I already gave it away.
Jim
but
Carrey. Jim
it
Carrey's
is the Jim
The
Carrey
Night Before
version.
Christmas.
It's not Night Before Christmas. but it is Jim Carrey in Disney's A Christmas Carol.
Okay, yeah.
Christmas
so
Carol.
That's,
Yeah, so I get a point
No,
there.
you don't get anything for that because you didn't get it right.
I called it. It's Jim Carrey.
Well, that's not the
you
name
got
of the movie.
actor.
That's the actor.
Walt already said the name of the movie. Somehow you got the actor, but named the name of the movie wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I still get a point.
I don't
By
know
the
what
way-
the
It
score
works-
is, but
it
I
works
have.
a lot
I'm,
easier when
I'm
you steal.
declaring Walt the winner.
I'm just going to say now, after all the begging for a quiz, I don't want to have another one because I'm just destined to lose with this guy's rules.
I just declared you the winner.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
all right.
Our
I get one more, and this
2016
is worth
Christmas
$1 million.
champion.
I get one
All
more
right.
question, and it's worth $1 million.
All right, one here. All right, this was going to be the tiebreaker. Jason, here's your chance. Ready?
Okay.
This is going to be the
Tell you what,
tiebreaker.
I'll tell you what. If he gets this right, I'll send him a fruitcake.
Awesome.
And if he doesn't,
You might send me a fruitcake even if I lose.
and if he doesn't,
He has to send you a
That's
fruitcake.
exactly
All right.
right. Go ahead.
Do you agree to the wager, Jason?
Sure.
All right. Very good.
Sure, I'll send him a
So this was
fruitcake.
just going to be who. This was just going to be who was closest. But now you have to get it exact. Here's the question: what year was Home Alone released?
oh,
The original Home Alone.
oh,
Oh, that's good.
stop
remember
looking
going
at
to the
your
movie
phone,
theater.
Jason. I see him looking down.
I'm not on my phone.
I hear his
Hey, I'm
fingers
nowhere
tapping.
near my phone. Okay, so I wasn't in high school. I'm gonna say it was 19.
You're correct so far.
1988. No, let's do. Let's do.
No, 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 no,
I
no,
got
no,
that.
no, no.
Hold on.
This
hold on.
is not the way.
1990. It was 1990.
Your final answer.
Yes, final answer.
I don't know how, but he pulled it out with his second try.
Yeah.
Well, you know what he was doing there? He's not in the room with us. He is. I can see him, but I can't see his hands.
Hey.
Hand check.
No,
And
my
he's- he-
hands,
did
I
you see
talk
how
like
long
this.
that
My
took for
hands,
him to answer
I talk
that?
with my hands. You saw
Yeah.
my hands.
Yeah.
There's
All right.
my phone is over here, and my screen has pictures of
All right.
you.
Surprise, surprise. Introduce your kids to fruitcake. It's going to be awesome. Welcome to the 400.
So the final score was 1,000,003 to or 1,000,004 to 3. Is that right? Or maybe 1,000,003 to 4. Was that the final score?
Look, based on the conversation we've already had, you just got a fruitcake. So, based on what you've said, you lose. That's what's going on here.
That's true.
So, you lose.
That is.
And I'm going to send one to you, and I want pictures of you eating it. In fact, we're going to get you to eat it on a podcast. How's that? That would be good. A podcast in July, so just hold on to it, and then we'll have you just keep it in the garage. Oh, good.
Okay, isn't that what you do
Yeah.
with most food?
Hey,
You
let's
get
talk.
from
Let's
Costco?
get into our. This took too long. Let's get into our Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
Merry
didn't.
Christmas.
We actually never even mentioned what Christmas is about, really. So that's not a reprimand to you guys. I'm just saying, that's kind of like our culture. We don't talk about what Christmas really is. So,
Santa
but
Claus.
thinking about.
That's
Shame
West
on
Coast.
you. Shame on you.
Bible trivia.
I-
Bible Christmas trivia would have been a little less fun, I think.
Well, that's because we would have known who we were talking about. That's exactly right. But just to make a segue here, and not to be funny, but to be serious, and that is that as we talk about the brokenness in the world, we're grateful for the fact that we don't have to. This isn't the end of the story. We're going to have our two-minute drill here, and talk about some of the stories from youth culture that are coming out. And the great news is that while these are little subplots in a bigger story, the bigger story ends well, thanks to the gift of Jesus, so the incarnation. So, Jason, what do you have?
Yeah. Well, man, I'm trying to think of a way to transition, but I just want to say Merry Christmas to all. This is an exciting opportunity for us to be able to dive into conversation this time of the year, and so.
All right, I got to stop you right. Merry Christmas
Yeah.
to all.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. To all, good night.
Yeah, there you go.
I apologize.
But keep listening. Boy, my voice just cracked there. That's
Did.
bad. Yeah, I'm so excited.
He got really excited.
Yeah.
No, I am incredibly grateful that we were able to do this, and it's such a gift, and to be able to have opportunity to be able to declare what the season is about is always a blessing. So with that, 2-minute drill. So diving into today's stories. Today's stories start with the topic of later laptop. One of the things that we're finding in today's youth culture and in culture in general is that we're moving away from the use of our computers. I remember a time where computers, PCs, were the thing that we would do most of our processing work on. But now what we're finding is we're moving most of our work to a phone. And it's changing the way we work, the way we talk, the way we interact. And it goes back to many of the conversations that Walt and I have had here on this podcast about multitasking. And what we're finding is that people are using their smartphone for work. They're also using it as a way to communicate and to stay in touch. Fewer people are bringing, and I see this in my own world, bringing laptops to meetings. Instead, they're choosing to record the meeting, but they're also using it to send email and to keep track of schedules. And I just think it's an important thing for us to be aware of because we are now tethered to our work more than ever before. We are now tethered to those outside of our realm of communication, face-to-face, more than ever before. So it's just something good for us to be aware of, to make sure that we're putting some good boundaries around how and when we're using it, because this technology can be both a blessing, but can also be a curse because it can actually take us away. Because one of the things that we find about the smartphone is this was unimaginable even just a few short years ago. And now, as technology continues to increase, the smartphone is operating and doing just as much and sometimes even faster than what the computer can do because of how accessible it is. So putting together some good boundaries is going to be something that's really useful. And I think that helping our kids draw those boundaries and then us as parents and as youth workers being able to demonstrate it to them is going to be really important.
That's good. You know what made me think, or what this story made me think about when I saw this research, is I just read a fascinating article in the I'm gonna go over time here, in the November issue of the Atlantic by a gal named Bianca Bosker. The article's titled "The Binge Breaker," and it's about a fellow named Tristan Harris who has worked for Google but is now pushing back because he realizes the ethical issues related to when apps and social media platforms are developed, how they're designed specifically to tap into our physiological, psychological bents and get us addicted, get us tied to it. So what you're talking about here, Jason, is how much harder it's getting for us to disengage from our devices. So it's not just the apps, but the fact that, we don't walk around with a laptop open sitting on a train or, walking down the street, but with our mobile devices we do, and that takes us deeper and deeper. So they're actually, this article is fascinating because they're actually calling for, or Harris is calling for, the development of something like a Hippocratic oath for software developers. So they want to, put a stop to the practice of exposing people's psychological vulnerabilities to these things and getting them addicted, because it breaks us down and it's breaking down relationships. I'll mention, let me shift here, I'll mention another story that's come out, and I've been tracking with this for a while. I bring it up over and over again because I'm very concerned about this and interested in this as it comes to to the issue of our children and athletics. Texas is now launching a massive study of head injuries and concussions on kids. It'll be, what Texas is saying, the nation's largest effort to track brain injuries among young athletes. It's being run by the University Interscholastic League, which is the governing body for high school sports in Texas. They're partnering with the O'Donnell Brain Institute at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, and it's going to result in the largest database that tracks this. And the reason is they want to see, how we can do a better job in terms of rules and equipment changes to improve player safety. So it's fascinating. I'm just going to mention this. Football is the sport with the most concussions per player. And I'm going to give you the sports in descending order from football in terms of where concussions come from, because the numbers are off the charts. I mean, up to 3.8 million concussions occur in sports and recreational activities each year. So here they are. Football's number 1, ice hockey's number 2. Number 3 sport for concussions is soccer. 4th is lacrosse. My boys played that. If you've never watched a game or felt a lacrosse ball, that thing is like a rock. Basketball's number 5, softball, baseball, volleyball, cheerleading, and then last in terms of the number of injuries per 100,000 participants is track and field, which I found quite surprising because probably the warning there is don't stand in the shot put pit. So get out of there, otherwise you're going to get a concussion.
Or in front of the javelin.
So, but this is just, I bring this up all the time. Parents, be aware of this. You are responsible for your children's health and to steward their health. So we'll continue to track with that and keep you aware of what's happening.
Yes, and something to also, if you want to hear more about this, HBO Sports just actually did a whole segment on this. And so if you have access to HBO, please go watch it because it actually tackles this in great detail. And it was some really good reporting around concussions and youth. Well, the next thing that I think is important, and this is something I engage with often, is the idea of technical virginity. There is an ongoing study that's looking at how teens feel oral sex doesn't lead to virginity loss. And anyone that's a youth worker and maybe even a parent has heard this before, that oral sex does not include sex. One of the things that I often say when we're working with youth is if it has sex in its name, it's most likely sex, right? So oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, all are forms of sexual activity. Why? Because you can transmit sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted infections. Very simply, that's where we come to this idea then of virginity loss. But the idea of technical virginity over the last several years, probably the last decade, I would even argue over the last 2 decades since Bill Clinton was our president, has grown in popularity. That is oral sex not being sex. And so it's something that is practiced. And this isn't just practiced by heterosexuals. This is also something that is largely practiced in other communities, LGBT communities, and the idea of virginity loss being protected so they move to oral sex thinking they're not losing their virginity. And what they're finding, there was a study that was done by the United States Medical Examining Board out of about 600 students, and they found 60% of them felt that the idea of oral sex or contact through genital acts did not actually include or should be included as a sign of losing one's virginity. And even in faith communities and outside of faith communities, there's a lot of conversation around this. And I just think that we, as Christians, need to be good stewards of our bodies and need to understand the dynamics and the language that's going into the idea of sex. And I, as someone that has spoken on this often, just want to very clearly communicate that oral sex is sex. And because it goes back to many of the reasons I first started this section with. And so just being aware of that, being able to have honest conversations when you are bringing this up in dialogue with your students, with your sons and daughters, is going to be really important.
Yeah, these are conversations definitely we need to be having. And I remember when this first became a big issue, probably about 15 years ago with middle school students, and we would talk about it. So keep talking.
Please.
Hey, a sad story that came out of Texas City, Texas back at the end of November was the suicide of a young teenage girl named Brandy Vella. And she had fatally shot herself following months of being bullied and sexual harassment, most of it perpetrated through text messages and social media, which is a whole new dimension. You talk about, we joke a lot about generational things. Bullying really is a generational thing in the sense of how bullying is conducted. It's totally changed from when I was a kid, and even Jason, when your generation were kids. I mean, it's basically for this digital generation, it is online 24/7 and it goes viral. You cannot escape it. And so you have sad stories like this. This raised some issues regarding some research that's being done about bullying and sexual harassment, especially research is being conducted in Illinois. So just a few stats here, and this should raise your awareness, youth workers and parents, of why we need to talk about these things. Nearly half, 43% of middle school students who were surveyed for the study reported that they had been victims of verbal sexual harassment, such as sexual comments, jokes, or gestures during the prior year. Now, while verbal harassment was more common than physical sexual harassment or sexual assault, 21% of students, I guess it went offline, 21% reported having been touched, grabbed, or pinched in a sexual way, and 18% said peers had brushed up against them in a suggestive manner. All this to say, we need to be talking, just as we do with oral sex, about borders and boundaries for how we treat others, what's proper, what's improper, and certainly with sexual values and attitudes being lowered and the resulting behaviors changing, what we find to be normal, what we understand to be normal, decent, perhaps even virtuous behavior is horrifying. The definitions are changing. And, while the story has not totally worked itself out yet, we're in football bowl season, and I know the story that was out over the last few weeks regarding the University of Minnesota and their football team. The players have decided to go ahead and play the game, but just Google that story and you can read a little bit about changing values and behaviors on sexual behavior and even sexual harassment, as I think it was 10 members of the football team were suspended because of a gang rape, and the campus rape culture is an example of this as well. So again, all the more reason to be talking about God's good and great design for the wonderful gift of sexuality and the borders and boundaries that He's established that allow us not just to worship and honor Him through our sexuality, but treat others with God-honoring dignity and respect.
Yeah. Well, and this next trend that has come on my radar quite a bit and actually relates to this is just the number of studies that are showing an increase in suicide rates among adolescents. And I'm sure this is something that you've seen quite often come up in the news in some of your study, but I'm just finding this increasing number of individuals that are both talking about and then we're seeing in the news the suicide rate. In 2014, which is the most recent year that was reported, 425 children ages 10 to 14 killed themselves in 2014. And that was in contrast to the year before, in that same year, of 384 children of the same age group that died in car accidents. It's now one of the leading ways in which individuals are dying. And at the heart of those reasons are depression, and then also what they're finding is among depression at its peak, at its highest it's ever been, and then also seeing in emergency rooms across the country a rise in self-harm and cutting with an increase in that. We're just seeing all these indicators increasing along with suicide. And what they are saying, or some of the reasons, are related to much of what you just spoke about. Some of the harassment, some of the bullying, the 24/7 exposure to some of the many messages that they are hearing and that they are seeing. They go to social media looking for validation, and when they don't receive it, it can spiral individuals out of control. Looking for acceptance and looking for that need to be known and loved and desired, not met. So we need to be paying attention to these things. We need to understand what God's words are to us, but also being able to set really healthy boundaries around the use of social media. And so I say that in conjunction with what you just spoke, because it is something that we have to be aware of. I think we as a church have a message, especially as we think about this in the season, this Advent season that we've been going through. There's so much that is hope and blessing that we see coming, messages that I've had many conversations with teenagers about during this season, that they want to be able to engage and hear, and it brings something to them that they hadn't necessarily heard all year through. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to dive into some of these conversations and to have some exposure to the world that they live in.
Well, let me give you one last trend. This comes from some research from the American Automobile Association. That's known as AAA. I'm not sure if that's a generational thing, that I know what that means or not. Kent, did you know what that meant?
No idea.
AAA? Okay, all right. We've got to work on you. Chris is shaking his head in disbelief. And Kent, I know your mom's listening. She's going to want to put you on a reading program for the new year, so we're going to work with her on that. But, yeah, AAA. So AAA, American Automobile Association. By the way, you should be a member of that, because if you ever get stuck on the side of the road, they'll come and tow you.
That's what I have
or
car
change
insurance
your
for.
Now that's a generational thing too, right? But okay. Well, they'll take care of all kinds of things for you, Kenton. And actually, whenever they come, they give you a check for a couple $100. So I don't know if your insurance company does that or not, but you might want to check that out.
They
So
might not.
that actually is not true.
You're getting way off. But you just
I
said
know.
that AAA gives you money for showing up to help you.
Yeah, I'm trying
change
to
a tire?
motivate him to get AAA. That's what.
And he
I
is
don't get
right.
any-
Car insurance companies now actually cover the cost of this. Anyways, we're getting
Yes,
so
thank
far
you.
off
Yeah.
of the distracted
Yeah, okay.
teen drivers. He's like a teen driver, only he's a teen host right
Well,
now.
I want to talk
He's getting
about a study
distracted.
they've done. AAA has done on distracted drivers, which is actually a problem I have in other areas of my life. Distraction. I just distracted the whole conversation here, so we'll come
You
back
did.
on this.
But
this
that's
is
all right.
Again. This is I often say that driving, just like anything else in life, is an act of worship. So we want to worship God by driving to His glory. We want to teach our kids to do the same. They did a study on distracted driving among newly licensed teen drivers, and all I'll do is pass on some of what they discovered, because I think this should wake us up as parents and youth workers to talk about, hey, keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. And by the way, this applies to us as adults as well. Females were twice as likely as males in this study to use electronic devices while they were driving. Females were more likely than males to be observed adjusting controls or reaching for objects in the vehicle. Males were twice as likely as females to turn around while driving, and a lot of that, I think, related to horseplay. Drivers are 3 times as likely to look away from the roadway when they are using an electronic device, and drivers are 2.5 times more likely to look away when engaging in distracting behavior, and more likely to look away when there was loud conversation or horseplay in the vehicle. So I know some states have restrictions on who can be in a vehicle, riding in a vehicle with newly licensed teen drivers. That's probably a good idea. But again, for the teenagers who are listening, keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road. For the adults who are listening, do the same. And for the parents and the youth workers who are listening, be sure to talk to your kids about this. So those are just some of the stories. And as always, we remind you that everything we've talked about here, if there is a link a story we've mentioned, we'll provide a link to that. If there's a book, when we go through the rest of the podcast today, we'll provide links to all that. Anything that's mentioned, if you're listening on iTunes or through some other platform where you're accessing the podcast, come back to our homepage, cpyu.org, click on the podcast, Youth Culture Matters, and we have archived all of our podcasts and links to everything that we've mentioned. Now, when we come back, we're going to have a great discussion because, again, the undercurrent of every story we've talked about today, Jason, and that we typically do when we talk about youth culture trends, is trying to get back to the gospel, God's order and design for the world. And part of that is teaching our kids about what the gospel is and to grow them in their faith so that they will, in fact, desire and endeavor to bring glory to God in every nook and cranny of life. And one of my friends from our youth ministry world, Dr. Terry Linhart, who I think is an incredible gift to the church, an incredible gift to parents, an incredible gift to youth workers. Terry's been writing rather prolifically lately, and he has recently edited a book that was released by Baker Books called Teaching the Next Generations, a comprehensive guide for teaching Christian formation. And what Terry's done in this book is bring together some great thinkers, some great practitioners in our youth ministry world, and offered up a gift not only to youth workers and youth ministry students, but I think to parents and those who are grandparents, anybody who is endeavoring to teach kids. So when we come back, we're going to have a great conversation with our friend Terry Linhart. Stick with us, and we'll be back for more of Youth Culture Matters. In an effort to help you help the kids you know and love navigate the difficult landscape of the emerging digital frontier to the glory of God, we've launched a Digital Kids Initiative here at CPYU. Thanks to a generous grant from a company called DAS, you can access our Digital Kids Initiative and a growing number of free resources and downloads by visiting the website at digitalkidsinitiative.com. This is one more way that we're helping you lead your kids to live lives where their faith in God is integrated into the growing amount of time they're spending with social media and technology. Well, welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Youth Culture Matters, and I am very excited about talking about a timely topic with someone who is addressing this in some deep and very helpful ways. That's my friend Terry Linhart, who is professor of Christian Ministries at Bethel College in Indiana. Terry, welcome.
Thank you, Walt. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and you're in. Well, tell us where Bethel is, because that's near another small school, right?
College. Yeah. There's a golden dome around the corner for Notre Dame University. But yeah, we live in the South Bend area. Most people know of Bethel University in Minnesota, but Bethel College here is a vibrant Christian college, about 2,000 students, and been here since shortly after World War II and just continuing to grow. And it's been here 16 years, a great place to serve.
Yeah, good. And how many so Professor of Christian Ministries, you have a student ministries major there, or are there other related? How do you guys define that?
Yes, we have a great youth ministry program. My colleague Robert Brandt and I are here, and so we have 2 full-time PhDs, each of us with at least 15 years in full-time ministry before we came. We have a really strong youth ministry degree. We switched my name to Christian Ministries because you may not know this, Walt, but I was a music major and have a music background. And we started a worship arts major. And so for 10 years, I was leading worship before I came to the college here. So when we started it, we put it in the religion department here. And I've been starting out. We have our own record label and have a new album coming out next year. It's a really exciting thing to see a college have an entrepreneurial spirit to start this endeavor.
Yeah, now, all right, let's stop and talk about that. Go ahead, Jason. You want to ask a question? Because I'm very curious about this.
I am too, but I was actually going to just ask if you did the bivocational thing with so many youth pastors that they do youth pastoring, and then they also have to worship, lead worship for the church. Yeah. So is that something that you also had as part of your resume for a period of time?
Oh, I was in Youth for Christ. Yes, when I was in Youth for Christ, I started as a part-time worship leader. Early 90s, it was the worship wars, quote unquote. And so one Sunday I was wearing a suit and tie leading a choir, and the next Sunday I was playing chord charts with a band. So we went every other Sunday. And then when I was associate pastor at Hope, I just led every third Sunday. So that was part of my job description.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Excellent.
So how come I didn't know this about you? I've never seen you with an instrument in your hands, you're always thinking and writing and teaching, and I'm actually quite surprised by this.
Yeah,
you make it sound as if all musicians have to carry a guitar with them everywhere they go.
No, but if he was a music education major, you would think that he would, at least have a harmonica strapped around his neck or something when he's at youth worker conventions.
Yeah. This is going to be interesting. Well, I was at Taylor University and got called to youth ministry while a music major. And I prayed, okay, Lord, should I switch my major? And very clearly, 3 very distinct events. I always say sometimes God leads us in threes to kind of GPS us in the middle. And within 48 hours of that decision, clearly to end with a music major. But I remember doing I was speaking on a retreat and had the synthesizers, the keyboards, the sound system, and it was in Michigan. And when I packed up, I just felt like God said, all right, you're done with the music on the road stuff. So, I am, I'm not the guitar player, I'm the piano player and kind of a producer. I bring in people from area churches to really help. But I love music. I feel very deeply about it.
So do you, who's your favorite, if you sit down to listen to, and I'm not talking about, worship music here as we label it, but favorite piano player that you like to listen to? Do you have one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was trying to think of which one I could tell you. Jeff Lorber. He's a fusion R&B guy. Great.
Okay. Now that's...
And I love, I'm going to get his name wrong, Yakorsky or whatever. He's the music director for Manhattan Transfer.
Okay.
Some of the stuff he does is unreal.
So genre-wise, you kind of like the R&B, you into Motown too? Or, the old Motown? No kidding. I've got all that stuff loaded into my computer so that when I speak, I play that, during breaks, and it's
Oh, yeah.
just horribly confusing to people.
It's great. No, I sneak off. I have a couple of missionary Baptist churches here, largely African American congregations. I feel way at home there with a good Hammond B3 up front. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow.
You know what? I love that. Yeah, I'll tell you what I just listened to it the other day in my car yesterday driving. Booker T, Green Onions.
Oh, yeah.
With the organ there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome.
In gospel music, I'm a huge Marvin Sapp fan. So whenever I hear his music, I turn it up a little louder. So,
Okay. No kidding. This is fascinating. Let's forget what we were going to talk about. Because this is educational
That's
for
great.
me. I love this. I love learning things about people that I didn't know. This is awesome.
Yeah, we've been hanging out for 10 years now, at least, on different committees for youth
Yeah.
specialties. We're just still learning each other. It's
Yeah,
great.
we're always just.
Well,
we're
now
always-
Walt's gonna have his phone close by so that he can turn up some Marvin Sapp or some of these other artists, so that way you guys can enjoy some of this music. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, this is good. Well, people are multi-layered. I like that, and I
Yeah,
have.
and that's a
That's a
great.
word.
Sorry, that's a great takeaway for anything we do. We're so quick to label each other and just
Yeah.
make us so one-dimensional that there's a lot
Yeah.
of layers to everybody.
So just in your imagination there, what do you think my secret talent is? Don't say anything. I'm just setting you up there for.
You're probably more athletic than people realize.
Now, we need to dig into that a little bit. So, see, these guys don't know. They didn't know me when I was younger. They didn't know me when I was younger. And plus, we've never gone out and played basketball or thrown a football. Now, we've thrown the baseball. But I'll tell you, since my bicycle accident, a lot of stuff doesn't happen anymore. The throwing and all
That's
that
a
stuff
story-
just hurts.
That's a story for another podcast. But ever since I've known Walt,
Yeah.
he's always end up injuring himself when I call him. So
Hey, Jason,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Jason,
go ahead.
I had a bike accident 3 weeks ago out in the Shipshewana area, and I hit the road hard. And as I'm on the road, I thought about Walt Mueller's act right there. I thought, I couldn't imagine. Mine was
man.
mild, and I was shaken up for 10, 15 minutes, and yours
I
was
bet.
terrible.
Oh, I laid there. They put me in an ambulance. This is a true story. And I can't, my breathing capabilities are diminishing because I had a punctured lung. And this guy, there was a rookie girl driving the ambulance. And I think what she did was she just aimed for every single pothole, everything, And the guy is wrestling to try to get an IV into my arm. And I'm looking at him going, buddy, don't worry about the IV. I can't breathe. You got to help me breathe. And he said, no, I can't do anything until I get the IV in, which I guess is their protocol, EMTs and things. And I explained to him I had just 2 minutes before I wrecked, I just downed like a big jug of Gatorade. And he's telling me he can't help me breathe because he's got to get this IV in. And my cell phone rings. It's sitting in the back of the ambulance. I see him slide out of my field of vision, and he grabs my phone and goes, it's a Jason Susanek. Jason was calling me while I was in the ambulance, and I just said, forget the phone. I need to breathe. But Jason always has an ability to get to me at the most crazy times.
So what he's saying, Terry,
Don't
is
say-
don't give me your phone number.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So.
I think we needed to talk soccer now a little bit.
Oh
so.
boy!
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
we're going to change.
Yeah, that's
Let's
right.
talk about something constructive here. But hey, here's what I want to talk about. Terry has a new book that he's edited and contributed to, put together. He just oversaw this whole thing called Teaching the Next Generations, subtitled A Comprehensive Guide for Teaching Christian Formation. It's published by Baker Academic. And I want to hear a little bit of the backstory on the book, and I want to debunk immediately that because it's published by Baker Academic, this should only be used in classrooms. Right?
Well, Well, you know what? Interestingly, we had a church denominational leader stop by today, the college, just traveling around the area. And he said, and we knew each other and we just met in the coffee shop on campus. He said, I just bought your book. Not even a youth ministry person, but he just says, I think in the churches, we as church pastors even need to get it. And he grabbed the book and just thought, this is a value, not just even for academics, not just even for youth workers, but also for pastors. And so, I pulled it together because we certainly had a gap in what we could use in our classrooms at colleges and seminaries. But I really wanted to advance, again, the cause of teaching because it's getting little attention. And when we look at some of the critique of how we're developing young men and women coming out of our youth ministries into churches, we need to pay attention again to this gap in local churches that exist in our teaching.
Yeah, that is, I can't emphasize that enough, and I have become more and more convinced of that just when you see what we've produced in terms of spiritual formation, what the output has been, and I think the decline in, I hate to say it this way, but just depth and quality in terms, we haven't done the work from the time kids are born to nurture them in the faith. And I think that there's since we're recognizing that, there's more and more of a movement now to see that becoming more and more important. Now, I come out of a tradition where Christian nurture has always been in the forefront, but I think more widely in the church, we're seeing a real excitement about that. I think what Kara and Brad are doing at Fuller Youth Institute, and talking about Christian education is a great thing. And I think this book is fantastic for that. So it's not so much, originally when I saw this, I was thinking to myself, okay, Terry's a college professor. He has a lot of professors, a lot of academics who have written here. This is going to be a book for college professors on how to teach college students. It's not. It really is. Yeah. Yeah, talk a little bit about who you're trying to target here and who you guys hope will read this.
Well, first off, so sometimes when you see a publisher label, it's the avenue into the market. And because I am, a professor, I don't feel very academic type person some days, but, that's how someone with my credentials can get published. You have to go through an academic lean, but the target market is anybody who is nurturing and helping another person. And I have, and that was my goal, Walt, but I have been surprised at how actually it's been happening, that people outside of colleges and seminaries have been using it. But it's primarily, we really did want to serve the classroom first. But the upside is each chapter is very short. This isn't a book with long chapters, with long arguments, with this historical and philosophical background. It is about teaching. It's a sole focused book on this act of this. And I think we, when we kind of readjusted Sunday school along the way, we kind of devalued teacher training and so forth. And so we have a lot of stuff going on in the church that feels like it's developing people for Christian formation, but really isn't.
Yeah. My mentor at Gordon my mentor at Gordon Conwell was Gary Parrott. And Gary, Gary wrote, along with J. Packer, Grounded in the Gospel, and then with Steve Kang, a book that I saw referenced in here in, I think, the bibliography, or someone listed it, one of the writers in here, in your book, listed it as a great resource, to follow up with for further reading. And that is just, going back to catechesis and all that, it's just awesome. I want to read something here in, Jason, I don't know if you had a chance to read this or not, but this is in the introduction that Terry wrote there, and I think this is what's at the root of everything here in this book, but this paragraph is great. And if youth workers would latch onto this and catch a vision for this, it would be awesome. He writes, we need to revitalize the task of teaching the next generations, but not with default, the way we've always done it approaches, or with an anything-goes, pragmatic recklessness that misses the mark in helping students grow in maturity. The next generation needs teachers, engaging teachers, wise teachers, joyful teachers, and well-studied teachers. Young people need to be engaged deeply in relevant ways beyond elementary teachings. They need a thought-full faith rooted in Scripture, empowered by the Spirit, connected to everyday realities to face contemporary challenges, historical tensions, and the difficult questions. And I've always said, what I think about here is, I've always said to my own kids, fill your wells with the truths of God's Word, because you will be able to, on numerous occasions across the course of your life, draw from it. You're going to need to draw deeply from the well. And I think this is, to me, this is what you're calling for. Where have we failed in youth ministry? What have we done wrong? Where have we been misoriented in our directions?
I think that there's a variety of answers. Perhaps my quick little statement I make now is we've programmed ourselves out of discipleship. We have become focused on the presentation rather than the outcomes of that. So we can do a great talk, have good music, and at the end of the day, we say, how did it go? And we look at the transitions. Was the sound good? We say, hey, I thought it went pretty well. And all the while, those who are listening and receiving it are not necessarily changed. So it's not being, I think, not being student-centered in our philosophy of discipleship.
Yeah.
That the folk, and you think of even going back to Coleman's master plan of evangelism, being close, being with, associating, those kind of things, that proximity is so important in teaching, especially one that relates to discipleship.
So would that be what you would consider as the default? That as we've looked at the default, would that be a way that you would describe some of the default? Based upon that excerpt from the book?
Yeah, this comes actually back from Tylerian education back in the early part, right after the Industrial Revolution, and we keep doing this. And if it's interesting, Walt, you said I brought together, the list of people writing for this book. I was so pleased because I wrote the dream list down, and all of them said yes. And so they knew what they were doing. And it's interesting how many of the authors, Jason, shared this, where they said, good Christian teaching isn't transmission, but it's about life change. And so it's not transmissive. It's a holistic transformation. It's, again, focusing on the quote-unquote student, whether it's an adult, young person, child, teenager. And I think that is what we're trying to address, to move away from default transmission to something that's more interactive, engaging, matches everyday life.
Might be.
Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Well, this might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, and I know that we're going to need to take a break soon. But I'm wondering practically how that looks. The new way with regards to it's not transmissive. Maybe what are some practical elements to that as we start thinking about that?
Yeah, maybe we could address it after the break if you want, certainly, because we can unpack it maybe in the second part here.
That'd be good.
That's good, yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's take a break. I love it when the guest helps us take the break because he's figuring out, he knows that we're going to.
I just know what's coming,
yeah,
and I don't want to go too long.
I know. That's awesome.
And so if you're saying we need a break, this might be good. Sorry.
I love that. I think it's great, Terry. It's fun. And if we can ever find anything and anybody else to pick on, we will find it. So you're welcome to do that with us as well, because by all means, these guys don't hold back with me.
I think the athletic comment I made earlier.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'm working on something for you here. I think I'm going to see you at National Youth Workers Convention, so I'll have something in place for you when I see you face to face. Yeah. Hey, well, this is good. We're talking to Terry Linhart. Terry's a professor of Christian ministries at Bethel College and the editor. The guy who put together a great new book that we're recommending for all youth workers, and I'm going to go a step further and say for parents as well. If you want to know what teaching is all about and transmitting faith and forming young people in the image of Christ, his book, Teaching the Next Generations, A Comprehensive Guide for Teaching Christian Formation, is a great book published by Baker Academic, and we're going to continue our discussion in just a couple of minutes when we come back. Stick with us. Are you interested in bringing CPYU to your church, school, or community? A big part of our ministry is the on-site seminars we conduct in dozens of settings every year. CPYU seminars are designed to encourage and educate your audience on a variety of youth culture issues. Every seminar is designed to be informative, practical, and hope-filled. If you want to learn more about our CPYU seminars, available speakers, and the many seminar topics and options in our growing seminar lineup, go to our CPYU homepage at cpyu.org. Click on the seminar option on the menu bar at the top of the page, and you can learn more about how to schedule a CPYU speaker and seminar for your parents, youth workers, and educators. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Youth Culture Matters. We're having a great conversation with Terry Linhart. Terry is a professor of Christian ministries at Bethel College, and we're talking about his book, Teaching the Next Generations, which we're very excited about. But before we continue on with the discussion of that, Terry, we like to put our guests on the spot. So we do a little thing called Take 5, and the person who's taking it is you. And you're taking 5 questions. I have no clue what they are. This is just so people can get to know you better. And
right.
Jason will fire these at you. First thing that comes to mind, just go ahead and give an answer. And by the way, if there's anything that's harassable, we'll harass you on it. So that's just part. Yeah, that's just part of it too. I said, but we know you can play along with it. So Jason, go ahead.
Okay, so again, not for embarrassment, but just for us to be able to get to know you a little bit more. But let's start with this one. What was your favorite toy growing up?
Matchbox cars, for sure. I loved Matchbox cars. Yeah, because I could work. Yeah, so it's a whole system. I mean, I didn't have one favorite one, but I lived for Matchbox cars. Yeah, we had tracks and we could organize them, and I'm an organizer, and so yeah, it was great.
Okay. Did you have any one particular set or play set that you liked the most to put your Matchbox cars on, like any one track or?
Yeah, of course.
I know there were so many.
Yeah, well, and Walt may remember this, but there used to be a thing called a sizzler, so you could plug in and they would go round, and they were self-propelled, and they would just race, and it was fantastic. You do?
Yeah, they still have that. Yeah.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just don't. I guess I don't play with toys enough anymore. But that was the one, the Sizzlers. I remember it very distinctly.
The Sizzler, man. The only thing I think of when the Sizzler comes up is a restaurant that would have a steak, but that's for another time. Okay.
Yeah, peppercorn. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay. If you could wake in the body of somebody else, who would you pick and what would you do?
Wow, if I could wake in the body. Well, given our off microphone conversations, I would probably wake into now some baseball player. So it would be, actually, no, I would maybe.
Go ahead, say it.
I always
know
wanted
what
to
you
be a baseball announcer, so I'd wake in the body of Joe Buck, but not because I wanted to look like him, but just because I could be
Joe
an announcer,
Buck.
So,
he's a Terry's a Cardinals fan. I knew he was.
I just always wanted to be a baseball announcer, but yeah, probably Albert Pujols or somebody like that, just so I could hit and run and play in his prime. You know.
Oh. I thought you'd say Dave Ron.
Well, he would probably that would be my second choice.
Yeah.
Well, when you said announcer, I was thinking Vin Scully.
Yeah,
but,
that's true. Well, my favorite announcers aren't with us anymore, so but the old AM radio days when you just you didn't have all this television, you just lived through and Vin Scully's the last one of them. Well, Marty Brennaman too with the Reds, but they could tell the story of the game, and it was wonderful.
Oh, okay.
Harry Carey.
Right.
Yeah, Harry Brickhouse.
Oh,
Jack.
Man, you're speaking my language right now. Well,
most kids now, they know who Harry Carey is because of one person, Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, and I think that is the most hilarious. I can watch those and just laugh. I think it's hilarious. You don't even have to know who Harry Carey is. He's funny.
I got to come back to this though real quick.
Right.
So well, Terry, you said Joe Buck. Are you a fan of Joe Buck? Because he also has many individuals that are not fans.
No, I'm not. But I mean, just to play his role, that he's the announcer for the Cardinals. I could have picked, Willie. I know all the Cardinal announcers, but he's the only one that probably. So, yeah, I'd love to be. I mean, to be the Cardinal baseball announcer for a long time would be a wonderful thing.
I spoke at a church once. You would know this. I can't remember, but I spoke at a church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there was a guy there who. It was an announcer or is an announcer with the Cardinals. Was there a guy, his last name was Carpenter, who was an announcer for the Cardinals? If you said his name, I'm getting that wrong.
It was Matt Carpenter. Wasn't he the baseball player or not? No?
But did he become an announcer?
No.
Okay, right.
There's not a Carpenter. There's a Ricky Horton that might be at a church in Tulsa, but I think he's from L.A.
Yeah. All right. Sorry,
we are way off track here.
We are.
No, we're doing this good. We like this.
What are we up to? Number 3.
We'll
Third question. We'll get through this. I promise. Okay. Would you rather live a week in the past, and you could choose any week in the past that you would like, or a week in the future, and why?
Probably a week in the future. I'm just curious about where all this is going.
Yeah.
I think curiosity rules. I mean, how far are we really going to make it to Mars? What will artificial intelligence really be like? I mean, I just think those are not only ethical questions, but fascinating technological ones too.
How far into the future to answer some of those questions?
I don't know. I think 50 years from now, what's the Mars
Yeah.
trajectory? We're going to get there in 50 years. So probably 50 years from now, maybe.
Okay,
Just see.
cool. That's great. Okay, if you could only eat 3 foods the rest of your life, what would they be?
Shrimp, corn, and some other meat. Probably I love steak, so those 3.
Wow. All right, shrimp, corn, and steak.
Yeah.
I
right,
gotta
I'm
ask.
glad he didn't
all
say
right,
kale.
The next time
I
Walt
guess
sees
too.
you,
I
he will
guess
bring you a
is
plate
that-
of
is that one
shrimp,
of your
corn, and
standard-
steak.
Is that one of your standard questions? The food
Is
thing?
that one of the standards?
Yeah, I mean,
No, they're
that's
always
like-
different. We always ask different
They're always
questions.
different. No, they're different.
in psychoanalyze now.
Yeah.
I mean, are
No,
you
no.
now? I just wonder what your
No.
opinion.
You're lucky
We're not
because
smart enough to do that.
one of our podcasts, I asked the guest if you could have your head, but on the body of any animal, what would it be? So just be glad Jason's asking the questions.
Okay, here's the last one. When you need to get pumped up, it's like, man, it's go time, you're getting excited for something. What's the one song that you play to get yourself pumped up?
Fooling Yourself by Styx.
Oh, Fooling Yourself by Styx. Can you sing a little bit for us?
Get back on your feet. You're the one they can't beat, and you know.
That'd be your walk-up song, huh?
It's a
That's
good one.
right.
Yeah.
I played basketball in high school, so Ride Like the Wind by Christopher Cross and Rubber Band Man by the Spinners were the other 2 that I used. But Fooling
Wow.
Yourselves, Fooling
Man, we've
Yourselves.
done all
I have never
spectrum
heard
of
those
music.
2 songs
Christopher
mentioned
Cross-
in the same sentence. Never in the history of the universe
Christopher
has-
Cross and the
Oh.
Spinners being
Yeah,
out together.
that's great.
By the way, I just introduced my staff to Christopher Cross because so
Yeah.
many of them are so young. They don't know who Christopher Cross is, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. We've got to do some educating. So I love that you brought him into the podcast.
Did they
Well,
all-
some of the songs have some Christian overtones to them. I mean,
Most
they're
definitely.
pretty profound.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jerry, for participating in our Take 5. That will conclude this podcast, Take 5. But if we have you as a guest, I'm sure we'll get some other ones. It will be good. Well, with that, let's try to make a transition back to some conversation that we were having before the break. And we were moving from talking about some of the defaults to then talking about some of the practical new ways that we had opened up conversation, but we paused in order to bring them here. So I would love to hear from you with regards to what are some of the practical ways that we can teach this next generation.
Yeah, so I think there are a handful. And the first one is that I think you need to have a clear teaching aim. This seems like a duh level statement, like we know that. But I'm surprised in my travels of watching different ministries or talks or sermons at the end of it. And I just heard one within the last 10 days that at the end of it, I just think, well, I don't know what the point was, and so being very clear on that. So clarity is the one. And then when you write that out, and you usually write that out like as a result of this talk or lesson or example, my people or students or whoever that is will do what? It's always what will the students do, learn, think, feel, be inspired, that kind of thing. I think that is it. And then I'll do a second one and we can chat maybe. And then the second one comes out of, I love this one. When you think about teaching aims and motivation, which motivation, Dave Ron wrote the chapter, we were talking about him earlier, on motivation in a book. It's worth the purchase of the book alone. And he asks the question, we should always ask, why should this person dive into this learning with me right now? What's the motivation that they have that they want to learn. I mean, I could tell my kids, hey, it's time to go, but if they're not motivated in some way, I mean, it's part of parenting, it's part of all sorts of things. We have to figure out in what way are these people motivated. I think those two at the beginning get us to a really healthy first step.
It's really interesting to me that you say teaching aim is the first one, and you mentioned this, but I do want to hit upon that, because it would seem that that would be one of the most important things that a teacher would focus on, is what is my aim, like what is the end result. And so what you're saying is it actually is one of the things that is missed. Is that something that you found to be obviously it's been something that you find to be quite true. So I guess the question is, what then can an individual do to make sure that they're doing the good work of creating something that is that has a bullseye?
Yeah, we have a lot of just, hey, I'm going to pick up this curriculum and use it moments. Now, a lot of good curriculum has an objective statement in it, but then if we modify it or we think about things, it's really healthy step for us to just write out, as a result of this, students will blank, and when I feel like I'm going into a class, even here at the school, or I'm doing something and I feel really unsettled, I just go back and say, what's my aim? And often I'm unsettled because I don't know what I'm going to shoot at. And it's been a real helpful tip for me, even after 30 years of doing this stuff, to just say, okay, here's my target, what I'm going for. And I know it's hard for people because I make my students learn to write aims, and I don't have a lot of points behind the assignment, but it's just such a struggle for them to think this way rather than picking up material and presenting it.
Do you think one of the issues with this, with the aim issue, is related to the passion of the teacher as well? So, for example, and we've talked about this here amongst ourselves at CPYU, and it's frustrating to me to see that more and more youth workers are buying, you mentioned curriculum, prepackaged. This was used somewhere else. It's not necessarily very deep, but I take it and I use it rote. And basically what I'm doing is reading or implementing someone else's script that they're making some bucks on, and I'm not really teaching from my passion. Now, part of this, Terry, comes from me, because if I have to read someone else's script from up front, that to me is unsettling. I like how you used the word unsettled, because it's not coming from me and coming from my passion. I'm not sure if you know what I'm asking there, but maybe I need to
No,
clarify a little bit.
Well, and so this goes, let me just go on to my third point, because you just set me up like we had pre-planned this. But I think we forget that we actually are part of a community when we teach, and we embody the teaching. And again, going back to Master Plan of Evangelism, which has so much more in it than about evangelism, is, Jesus said, hey, to the disciples, come and be with me. Well, we don't do a lot of withness anymore in ministry because of the program, the separation. We're fascinated with CEOs and ministry structures. There's a lot of separation, especially in the States here in certain cultures. And to have, again, an invitation for people to say, hey, come and be with me. And then the teaching takes on a new passion, that there's a care in there rather than what you said. I think what happens is that we do think of it as a program, a presentation. So then we can just pick up whatever, I present it, and we hope you get it. And we're not close enough to inspect what's going on, if there's fruit or not that are budding on the trees of the people we're teaching.
Yeah. Well, as a follow-up to that, what would be some good best practices and habits, regular habits for youth workers to develop to cultivate themselves as teachers, to teach themselves to be teachers, to equip themselves to be good teachers?
Well, besides, of course, buying my book, the idea that learning how to work on your methods. I think we don't talk methods anymore. It's not a seminar at any conference, but becoming really good at discussion and question asking, creating space and listening well, slowing down, and being patient. I think one of the things that is best practice is that I again become person-centered in this business. And that's why this book isn't, it's teaching in the title, but so many times we think of teaching as formal, and it's actually very relational, and especially if it looks like Jesus did. So learning how to create space. And then I think another best practice, besides listening and learning how to ask good questions in that process, is to evaluate. And I'm tickled with Carrie Loescher's chapter in the back of the book. I think it's one that youth workers would be tempted to bypass. But if we don't know how we're doing, then we don't know how we're doing. Hey, you can write that down. That's really good, right? But seriously, if you don't know how we're doing, we may be doing poorly, and we just don't stop. If I were doing the Youth for Christ model again, where we do a discussion and then a wrap up, I would now add, knowing what I know about how people learn, that wouldn't be the end. I would spend another 10 minutes in feedback time and small groups to make sure everybody's talking and interacting with the material. I just find too often, I just did a research project for InterVarsity across the country a couple years ago, and we evaluated their manuscript Bible study method. And we went from USC to Delaware, everywhere in between, and just did an evaluation. And one of the criticisms, it's too strong. One of the areas that we identified and they also did was that application was being underserved. And so I think if we did a third thing, we would say, always make sure you're strong on application. And it goes back to the motivation piece.
Yeah, this is good.
I want to follow up on this just to continue the conversation, really, because you said the third aspect is community, embody what we teach. And I guess maybe you're answering this question because I think that sometimes as I hear that, I could think, well, I have to embody what I teach. But really, correct me if I'm wrong, what I hear you're saying is that, yes, it starts with you, but then when you think of community, it's your entire community, not just yourself, that embodies what is taught. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, well, it's both, because I remember when Dave, Ron, and I did the research on evangelism for Evangelism Remix book, the first finding we had was that every youth group had the personality of their leader. It is interwoven in that. So the leader sets the pace, he or she, and how they conduct themselves. But yes, I think back on my years at Hope Missionary Church before I came here, and I'm most proud of the collective character of our community, but certainly that is a strong piece. Yeah. But I would say it's both. You think of adolescents and how they learn. We primarily as teenagers learn through modeling. We watch. So it's spontaneous moments where we watch them, how they react to a flat tire. It's also structured where someone says, hey, come watch me, and then I'll watch you, that kind of thing. All that is part of it. And it requires us to, I think, pay attention to the community's role and our modeling role in how we're teaching and leading others.
I love that we kind of went there, but I just want to say that I see each of these 3 points not just playing out in the life of a youth worker, but even as a parent of young children. I love how these are things that my wife and I have actually talked about, that we want to aim well in what we teach. We want to be motivated and really the embodiment of what are we, the community, like how are we as a family going forward? And the personality of the leader, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's contagious. That's the word maybe that I would use. And I love the way that you're playing that out, because I think about this not just as a youth worker. As I hear you talk, I think about this as a parent as well. And it just seems like these are things that would play out well in the home, just as they would in the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kelly and I often with our kids, Kelly and I often would say, just to make sure we're communicating clearly on our, if you will, instructional agenda for each of our kids through the year, certainly. Yeah.
And that raises a question, because I was thinking about this when you asked that, Jason, and that is there a way, have you envisioned a way, Terry, for youth workers to take this book and actually serve as a bridge to get it in the hands of parents, youth workers, and parents studying some of the principles in here together? I know it's new, I know it's fresh, it's new, and it's out freshly, so you haven't had a chance to hear those stories yet. But I envision it doing that, and I just wonder if you've thought about that at all.
No, I haven't. That's fascinating. We are developing a one-day seminar for churches that was more for, I think, volunteers and staff at churches to. The various people could, come in and help a church grow. That's certainly going to happen next year. But I had never thought of the parenting thing, so maybe that's a CPYU thing that they could carry on there. Huh? So.
Well, we're certainly.
You need more to do, I think.
No, really. But I just think that it would work well that way. Let me ask you another question about the book. When I go through, and rather than reading and highlighting chapters and authors and the subjects that they cover. What are some of them? And I'm not asking you for which are the most important or which you think are the best, but just highlight some aspects of this that you think youth workers would find to be really, really valuable.
Well, I think that what I like about the book is it's really helpful for a veteran youth worker to get a refresher course on how these things work. Barrett McRae's chapter on from Wheaton, How People Develop Their Thinking, is like a primer on educational psychology that you could just read through and maybe twice, and then you'd get it, you understand. I mentioned Dave Ron's book on motivation. We do have a couple of chapters on this intergenerational, family-oriented learning from Brenda Snalem, Ken Castor. I thought that was really good. And then we have a section on methods, and we lead off with Duffy Robbins talking about teaching the Bible. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And what a great chapter. And then just discussions. And Karen McKinney's book, we just had her on our podcast last week about experiential education, one of the most creative teachers I know in our field at Bethel University in Minnesota, just using experiential education and teaching through experience. And we often don't do it because it's harder work, but it's not that difficult. And I still remember my youth workers, coming to the school using role plays, and I still remember them to this day because they got at that motivation factor because they immediately connected to my life because they were simulating something that I was quite familiar with. And Bill, the youth worker, knew what he was doing. He had a couple of the cheerleaders in all the role plays all the time from the high school. So as a freshman, I was always paying extra special attention.
Yeah, is there a chapter on that? How to grab attention?
Yeah. But no, those are some of them. And then there's just a lot of really good ones, and I'm just, again, tickled with the quality of the writing that everybody did.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the lineup is great. And when I saw that, I thought this is just awesome. So I really appreciate this. What are some, just to wrap up a little bit, what would be some other, besides this book, Teaching the Next Generations, and by the way, we put links to everything on the page for the podcast. So anybody who's listening who is not accessing this podcast through our webpage, cpyu.org, maybe you're getting it through iTunes or some other provider, come back to our webpage, and everything Terry's talked about, the book, other names that have come up, will have links to all these things, and you can click through on that. But I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, what's been helpful to you that you would recommend in terms of resources, books, for youth workers to understand a little more of the process of spiritual formation and teaching the next generations?
My favorite is Shaping the Spiritual Lives of Students by Richard Dunn. I love the idea of pacing there that he draws in the book, that when we walk with little children, we can't outstep them. We have to walk at their pace. And I think that people who are mentoring and growing the next generation need to understand that we need more patience, that we just can't over-expect and expect too quick. We're very quick to want people to give us a second chance and be patient with us, and less inclined to do so with others. And I think that we certainly see that on the road. We want people to understand why we're maybe going slow. That's one. Another spiritual formation, but I love anything by Eugene Peterson. That may be an odd thing to say, but this is a pastoral business that we're in. And he and Henry Nouwen, those books, In the Name of Jesus is the other one I would recommend. And I read that every year. Oh yeah, by Nouwen. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a book that I just think is one worth reading on a regular basis. And then the other one, last one, is Bob Mulholland's book, Invitation to a Spiritual Journey, The Intersection of Personality and Our Lives. That may not be exactly the kind of books you're looking for, but that's the ones that I just say, hey, start there.
No, I think that's important. Do you think that this task, going back to what you said about Dunn's book and pacing ourselves, do you think, because of the power and the influence of culture, the pervasiveness of culture, so much more information, the speed of change, that our pacing has needed to slow down a little bit?
I do. And when he talks about pacing, it's that we focus on the pace of the ones we're leading and match their pace. And so sometimes when you have them interacting with culture, and he mentions in the book things like pseudo attachments, like they're getting their identity from somewhere else. And, so not only do you match their pace, but you sometimes have to wait, they're looking away and distracted at something. You got to wait till their focus comes around sometimes. And you think of the life of if we're talking youth ministry in particular, that's why making sure we have this is my bias coming through here, but I think a robust camping retreat dynamic to a yearly ministry is so important, to pull away for periods of time, even if it's just an overnight, and not programming like crazy, but just space giving, where students can slow down, and you start on a Friday and it's maybe by Saturday afternoon, they mentally arrive, and, you're able to help them through that. And then I think, Westerhoff said you could do a lot of spiritual formation just having retreats rather than weekly programming.
Yeah.
I'm messing his quote up there, but I Linhartized it, I think, a little bit. So.
Nothing wrong with that. This is great. I really appreciate this conversation, and we're going to continue to push the book. We're going to want to get you back on here to hear a little bit later on about how it's gaining traction, how people are using it, because we love to read here, and we love to recommend books, and I think that's one of the best ways to learn. And we want to encourage and push and prod youth workers to constantly be learning. This is what, the life that comes out of us is directly related to what we pour in and allow others to pour in. So, Terry, I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Doing the pouring in with this book. This is great, and inviting all those people to do that for youth workers. Jason, anything you want to say as we head out here and finish? I'll let you take it out.
Well, I appreciate what we've discussed today, because I think it's something that's just needed. And although the points are simple, they're profound. And I think that the practical aspect of this book is needed. And I know that I have become a fan, and I will definitely be selling this to many of my friends that are in youth ministry, because I think that this is a needed book. And I'm thankful for the words that we've discussed today. So, Terry, thank you so much for being here. Walt, as always, good to be with you. And for those of you listening, we're thankful that you have joined us. And we look forward to being with you again here on the next episode of Youth Culture Matters.
Thanks for joining us for Youth Culture Matters, a podcast from the Center for Parent-Youth Understanding. If you'd like to learn more about today's youth culture, visit our website at cpyu.org. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, email us at podcast@cpyu.org.